Andrea is first in the group tonight. Hello, Andrea. How are you? Glad to see you tonight. Got a good show planned. Got some questions. Kelly, glad you could make it. I know you told me earlier today that you'd be tuning in. Christina, Stephanie, your book's on the way, Stephanie. Good to see you in here. Good to see everybody. I'm home. Yes, I am. I was going to talk about that. Yes, I am home. Bonjour, Stephanie. You speak a little French. Yeah, I drove back last Thursday, got overnight, got here at like 6:30 in the morning Friday, and it has been absolutely beautiful in here, in Florida since I got back. Absolutely beautiful. Really beautiful. Hello, Joyce. Joyce, you got your shirt, I guess. I'm glad you like it. I can't wait to see it. But hey, Greg, what's going on tonight? And I'm going to answer your question regarding Indiana retention ponds. So please tune in for that. That's going to be a little later, though. But I got your question, so I'm looking forward to answering it for you. So we got some people in here fairly quickly at 9:01 p.m. Eastern Time, wherever you're coming from. But yes, I am back in Florida, and it's good to be home. And the funny thing is, if you're looking at my hair and seeing, well, its hair looks a little different tonight, it wasn't until today that I discovered that I left my hair gel back in Pennsylvania. So it's looking, I got the au naturel look going tonight. And that just shows you that I haven't really been out much since last Friday, that it took me 5 days to figure out that my hair gel is back in Pennsylvania. But it's okay. It's looking all right. Hello, Lois. Hello, Marcia. Marcia, I saw you gave Unfound 5 out of 5 stars. Marcia, I deeply appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. Hello, Charlie. Hello, Debbie. Man, we got a lot of people in here tonight. That's good. That's great. I'm excited about it. By the way, I have an Unfound shirt on. Do you have yours? Have you gotten one yet? I have an Unfound shirt on. And it has all the cases on the back. Can you see them? Yes, you can see them. See all the cases? So I have my Unfound shirt on tonight for all of you. And I was going to blame, you were going to blame my hair on the humidity. I should have thought of that, Greg. That's a fantastic idea. I should have done that instead of admitting that I forgot my hair gel. That's a great idea. I'll use that for next time, Greg. I'm going to steal that from you. Stylianos. I have to say, I haven't seen you in the group for these live shows. I know you're right here. Yeah, Steve from Tampa, right? I'm not sure if that I've seen you for the live show before, Stylianos. Good to see you. I'm glad I don't have to pronounce your last name. Marcia, really found your podcast. Love it. You're doing an awesome job, Marcia. That's very kind. Thank you, and thank you for taking the time to give Unfound a nice rating on Facebook. I deeply appreciate it. So we got a lot to do tonight. So I thank you, everybody, for being here. We're going to do, if you've been here before, you know what we do. We do a little intro. We do a little business. We're going to talk a little bit about a little bit of true crime news. I'm going to take some questions from the audience, some people who have emailed me before, or messaged me before, or anybody in the group wants to ask me any questions as we continue. We could do that as well. Styliana says, I like to stay in the background. Okay, well, then maybe you have tuned in before and I just haven't noticed you. Okay, well, that's great too. And then finally, we're going to talk about this Friday's upcoming episode, the disappearance of Renee Yeargain. She disappeared from Torrington, Wyoming. It's our first case in Wyoming. And that happened on August 10th, 2004. And I'll be getting to that later in the program. So, yes, I am back in Florida, as Andrea noted very early on there. It's good to be home. And I'm going to throw out a little quiz for all of you. So I want you to pay attention, concentrate on this, because the winner gets a free print edition of volume number 1. All right, so get ready. The quiz is going to start. Pop quiz right now. And if you've already have volume one, maybe I'll give you volume 2. Well, I'm sure we can work something out. The quiz is this. This Friday is going to be the first time in a while that I am interviewing a male family member. It's something that I didn't even realize until I was working on the episode today, that this is the first time we've had a male family member interviewed on the program in a while. The first person who types up you don't have to say who the person was, but the case, the last time we had a male family member interviewed for an episode of Unfound gets a book with my signature in it, with a little message from me. Or we'll work something else out if you already have volume 1. So when was the last time I interviewed a male family member for an episode? The first person to type the case in the little thing over here on the side wins. All right? So you can be looking into that while I continue with my business here. Dee Dee, always good to see you in your little Wonder Woman picture there. And Leslie, good to see you tonight as well. Did anybody get fooled on Sunday? Did anybody get fooled? It was April Fool's. I didn't go anywhere, so I didn't get fooled. I spent all day at home, and I don't like to be fooled. I like to kind of know what's going on, so I wasn't fooled. I hope none of you fell for any pranks. Maybe you performed some pranks, and in that case, I hope you were successful. But I hope everybody had a great April Fool's. It's been a beautiful April here in Madeira Beach, Florida so far since I've been back since last Friday. Just a little business stuff. I already told you about the shirts. Guests of the program continue to get them. Joyce, who is in here, got hers. Got hers from just maybe today or yesterday. I sent one out to her with both of her daughters' pictures on the back with their information. So I'm continuing to send shirts out to guests, and I'm slowly working my way up to the present case. I'm slowly catching up with where we are. So I think I'm like in October of last year contacting those guests, and some maybe recent guests who have asked me about them have gotten theirs, but I'm slowly working on that. And also I'm selling some shirts. I think people are seeing them and taking an interest. Friends of some of these families have bought some shirts, giving some shirts away to some Patreon people, some PayPal people. So we're doing very well. However, I do have to admit there was a mistake on one, and I had to reissue one a few days ago that I was not aware there was a mistake on it. That's my fault, and I'm correcting it as we speak. So please check out the shirts at myshopify.com. Everybody seems to love them. They're very good material. They wash well. They wear well. They're not going to wear out, I don't think, after time. They seem to be of very good quality. And I think the pictures on the front and the back will stay for a very, very long time. Joyce, Renee Yeargain's case, she disappeared in Wyoming. And Diane, hello from Pennsylvania. All right, Diane. I was just there. Having watched the Pirate game up until about 5 minutes before I started the show, I'm glad I'm not there. It was snowing for the Pirate game tonight. So we got the shirts, doing very well there. Going to continue to give those out to guests and to special Patreon people, PayPal people. And, of course, if you want one, you can go to myshopify.com. Just do a search for Unfound. You will find the entire catalog there. Lots of shirts there to pick from, a particular case. Or you can get a shirt like I'm wearing now, which is the first-year case shirt. Got the books. 1 and 2. 1, 2. Working on 3. It probably still working on some things with book number 3. Waiting for one more transcription. You know who you are who has to get that to me. And then on top of that, working on the foreword for that. And then I still have to do some of my own writing, some of the facts, and summations, observations for that book. but I think it would be much closer to be done if I didn't have to go back to Pennsylvania for a week, just to be honest. Yeah, Stephanie, no pressure. And Emily, good to see you. I'm going to answer a couple of your. Emily is, of course, my assistant. She finds a lot of the people that you end up hearing on Unfound. She is in the group tonight. Emily, thanks for joining. I'm going to answer a couple of your questions. So we got the books and we got the cards. Haven't talked about those. Still working on those, but they're right here. Who do we got? Let's pick one out. We got Amanda DeGuia right there, the ace or 8 of diamonds. Rebecca Gary, 4 of spades. Who do we got? Chip Campbell. You can find those at makeplayingcards.com. Just do a search for Unfound there. You will find them. And Dorothy's from New Jersey. Good to see you tonight. And then Jessica, thank you for tuning in tonight as well. One more business thing. Patreon and PayPal, I've already mentioned them, but some of my longtime Patreon supporters, specifically those people in the $5 and up categories, I've emailed them. They're now eligible for some additional items. I emailed them. Some of them have gotten back to me. Some haven't. But I'm going to be working on probably altering the Patreon tiers a little bit. Probably going to include some shirts, and now we have other things that are going on. Of course, an additional book. We're going to have Volume 3. There's going to be a lot of things that I can add to that, and I'm going to do that. So I'm going to be messing around with that probably this weekend. So be looking for that, and I'll let you know when it's been changed. But still a lot, a lot has changed since I set the Patreon up a long time ago. So Patreon, PayPal, you know what happens to all the money that I collect from those. I've donated actually some PayPal, some people who have sent money. I've donated to, for example, Mary Lau's charity. I've done that. And then I have also, that provides for the shirts that I can send out to family members and to other people for free. All right. I frankly don't keep a ton of the money that comes in from Patreon and PayPal. I try to give it out to those people who, mainly guests, but once again, I've donated to Mary Lau's charity as well. And I would urge you on your own, if you want to donate to Mary Lau's charity, Missing Persons Charity, you can go just do a search for Center for Hope, and you can do it that way as well. So let's get to a question. I'm going to take a non-true crime question to start. This is from Jill, and I think that she's asking me this because earlier today I shared a picture that one of my former co-workers at Star Trek The Experience had posted. Maybe some of you who are also friends with me on Facebook noticed that picture. I'm sitting on the left side of the picture, which would be to the captain's right. It was actually the seat that Commander Riker sat in, if you're familiar with Star Trek Next Generation. Jill asks me, what character would I be if I could be on Star Trek? Well, of course I'd have to be the captain. I think that probably I wouldn't want to be the captain of Voyager like Captain Janeway, because I wouldn't want to be stuck, however many light years from home they were stuck from. They were away from home. That just sounds like too much work. Probably wouldn't want to take Captain Kirk's place because that was a little too old school. I'd want to be as trendy as possible. So I'd like to be probably the captain of the Enterprise D/E. So Captain Picard's place sounds like a great place to be. I think that would work out for me. Or maybe I wouldn't probably mind working on Deep Space Nine. Maybe I could take Sisko's place, something like that. But in thinking about this a little bit more, probably the character I see myself most like is probably Worf. Probably Worf. because he was adopted. I'm adopted. Seemed like an information guy, tactical guy, ahead of the defense of the Enterprise and then the defense of Deep Space Nine. I think that would probably be something that my mind, my abilities, and things would go well with. So I have probably the most in common with Worf, even though I wouldn't say I'm like a Klingon necessarily, but probably personality-wise and abilities and my strengths, that's probably where I would fit in as far as being like another character. But if you're going to give me a choice as to what I'm going to be in Star Trek, I'm going to have to be the captain of something. I'm going to have to be. Greg says I'd take Discovery any day. Greg, I have to admit, I've not seen Discovery at all yet. So I can't even comment on that. I really have not even seen any reviews or anything, but I don't watch TV or anything. So I don't know if it's good or not. I'd be interested to hear your opinion on Discovery, Greg, but I have not seen that yet. So I can't really say I'd be a part of it without knowing what it is. So I'd probably go Enterprise. I'm so lost. No idea who these characters are. Sorry, Andrea. So I apologize. Greg says Discovery's awesome. Okay. Well, Andrea, I can assure you that's the only Star Trek question tonight, Andrea, so you don't have to worry about that. But I am going to do, so that was for Jill. She asked me that question. I don't know if she's in here or not, but that was for her, and if she's not in here, she can watch it on YouTube later to see what my answer was. I know Anne is in here, so I want to answer her question. She says that in her state of Indiana, a lot of bodies are found in retention ponds. And, are these suicides? What are they? And maybe I'm going to read this question verbatim here. There seems to be a lot of missing persons found in retention ponds, at least in Indiana. I know some are accidents, but are there many that are suicides? I'm going to say that, this goes back to, retention ponds, lakes, rivers. There's a variety and I would say that there's a variety of opinions of what's going on. I personally don't believe that these are suicides. The truth is that to try to drown yourself for a suicide is very difficult because your body naturally wants to float. That's why when people do commit suicide with water, they usually, tie their foot to something, a cylinder block, and of course you can't fight against that, and it just drags you to the bottom, not to be morbid. It's also the reason that when people do die in bodies of water where it's suicide, they have to jump off something that's very high, like the Golden Gate Bridge or the Skyway Bridge down here near Tampa, which is a very popular suicide jumping place. So they may die in water, but what kills them is not the water, it's hitting the water that actually, will kill them. So they aren't drowning, but that's a suicide, but it's not drowning. So they're probably, and I would say if people are being found in retention ponds, I would say that it's not suicide. I would say that it's either they were murdered and they were just dumped there, which is possible. Dumping people in water to get rid of a body is not the number one way. The bodies are usually disposed of. The number one way, I think I read somewhere, somebody did a study on this, it's still burying people. So I would say that bodies of water, if bodies are found in them, it could be that the person was murdered and then disposed of there. But I being that I don't believe in the smiley face killer phenomenon stuff, I believe that a lot of these are people who might be on drugs, might be high, might be drunk, and they just somehow end up into a body of water and they end up drowning. And before you think that, well, it's just a retention pond, how deep it can be, well, you got to remember that there have been a couple very famous rock stars who choked on their own vomit, not to be ugly. Bon Scott from Bon Scott from AC/DC. He drowned in his own vomit from being drunk. And wasn't it also John Bonham, from the drummer from Led Zeppelin, who did that as well? So it doesn't take a lot for a person to, die from not being able to breathe, even if it's in water that's not that deep, if they're otherwise incapacitated, passed out, fainted or whatever else. So, and that's, I'd have to know this particular cases that you're talking about, speak about something specifically. But I'm inclined to believe that most people who are found in bodies of water probably were drunk or on drugs or something when they entered that body of water. All right. That's my first choice. And I think it will always be my first choice. Although, once again, we do have to consider that probably some of those people are were murdered and then end up there, and maybe once in a while a suicide. But I think most of them, it's just not realizing what they're doing and falling into some place. And maybe when they hit the water, they tried to swim, but if they can't walk, if they're stumbling around because they're drunk or on drugs, how are they going to be able to swim? Swimming is surely more difficult than walking. So that's just the way I look at it. Just the way I look at it. Vicky, good to see you tonight. I hope you're doing well out in California. Sherry, good to see you. I don't know where you live, but I hope you're doing well wherever you are as well. So there's a couple questions. Let's cover a little bit of news. Do you know that, remember this guy who disappeared from I think that what I want to do with this story is illustrate how I think mainstream news outlets, get this kind of wrong. But Dr. Timothy Cunningham, he was the guy who worked for the CDC in Atlanta. He's still missing. It's been a couple months, and I didn't write down the date that he technically disappeared, but he is still missing. There are now conflicting reports of whether he got accepted for a promotion, got declined, was he depressed, was he angry? It's hard to tell what the truth is regarding all that. All we know is that he's missing. And he seemed to have left everything at home, all of his wallet, keys, car, everything else. He's still missing. Well, people.com has a story on him now. You can go there maybe after this show and check it out. And they portray it that his disappearance isn't like any other missing persons cases. Well, I would, of course, disagree with that. I mean, there are people who are disappearing and leaving everything, including their car at home all the time. There isn't foul play involved. And people just walk off, and a lot of them are never found again. It's not as rare as people.com would have you make it out to be. All right, I think that they're using that line just to get eyeballs on the story, and I don't like that. That is very misleading. It's very misleading as to what actually goes on with missing persons cases. All right. And I think that we agree that missing persons cases don't get enough attention and respect as it is. All right. I think that most people, unless you are taking interest in Unfound or other missing persons programs like The Vanished or TV show Disappeared or whatever, probably you don't have, if you're outside of those people, you probably don't have the most accurate idea of what really goes on with missing persons cases, from who disappears, how the cases are investigated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. And people.com, I think, is showing that. And that's unfortunate because only continues to portray something that isn't true. His case is like other cases. Is it really common? No. But there are many cases exactly like Timothy Cunningham's, first of all. Hello, Marcia. Tammy Lynn Leppert. You brought that up. Please tell me why you brought her up, and we can talk about it, Marcia. Angela, good to see you. And Jeremiah, how are you doing tonight? I'm sure you're very happy to see University of Michigan lose. Greg, I'm shocked by how many cases the police blow off. Greg, I'm going to get into that in a second. Thank you for bringing that up. Barbara, hi, I finally found your live video while it's on. Barbara, great to have you. So he's still missing. People.com has a story on him, and they portray him. Well, if you get the sense of the story, they're trying to say, well, he was this they use the term golden boy at CDC, and why would a golden boy, go missing? It does, and I would say it doesn't matter. I think that what we've proven on Unfound is that disappearances happen to people all over the spectrum. All over the spectrum, from rich people to poor people. Yes, drugs, as I've said, play almost 50% of the cases we've covered. Drugs do play play a role in a lot of these cases. But the point is that just because I say drugs doesn't necessarily mean poor people. There are people who are decently well off who are into drugs who have gone disappeared, and those are cases that we've covered. People who we thought were living pretty good lives who have disappeared. I think of Jeff Nichols. Now, that's one where there's obviously foul play involved, but he was leading a good life, So, just because you're a golden boy or a golden man or a golden girl or a golden woman or the man with the golden gun, anybody can go missing. Anybody. And that's the way it should be. That's the way disappearances should be explained. People.com is not doing that, and I don't like it. Marcia, is that the last mail you used for an interview? Well, Marcia, I did have a mail as the interview, but he is not a family member, Marcia. I'm looking for the last family member who was interviewed, who was a male. But yes, you got that right. But Anthony, who was the interview for that episode, he is a blogger. He is not part of Tammy's family. So keep working on it, Marcia. I'm rooting for you. Jeremiah, what up, buddy? I'm not upset Michigan lost. I know you're not. And then Angela, hello back to you too. So the Timothy Cunningham's still missing. I'm not sure. Otherwise, regarding that disappearance, I'm not sure that I know any more than any of you do regarding it. In fact, if any of you are in the Atlanta area, you may know way more about it than I do. I'm not sure what happened there, but it's certainly not rare, and it should not be portrayed as that, because it only continues the public, perception to be wrong. All right, and we don't need that. Missing people, we don't need that. I want the most accurate information about missing persons cases and the whole missing persons environment to be out there. Okay. Jeremiah says, Marcia's on my Unfound trivia team. That's funny. All right, next story I want to cover is a story that has become a missing persons case. It seems like it's Mr. Walter's son. I'm not sure, Mr. Walters. Not sure who you mean, Dorothy. You're going to have to tell me it doesn't sound right to me. But tell me what the case is, who the person who disappeared. But I don't think that's right, because I checked it. But keep working on it. Once again, if you're just tuning in late, the first person to tell me the last time I entered a male family member for an Unfound episode is going to win a free Volume 1 or Volume 2 print edition signed by me. All right, if you're getting in late. So there you go. This is this case out of California where this car went off the cliff. These two women who were a couple had these 6 kids all adopted. And it is believed now that the 2 women were in the car with at least some of the children, and the car was intentionally driven off a cliff at 90 miles an hour. I'm sure a lot of you saw this story. It's a horrible case. Here we go. I'm going to break in. Breaking news right here. Lois, you win. You are exactly right. Lois, nicely done. Nicely done. Lois, you win. The last male family member that I interviewed for an episode of Unfound was David Medot's dad. Of course, that was the case where the three young men disappeared out here in the Gulf of Mexico down near Marco Island. That was a two-part episode where I presented both sides of the argument as to what could have happened. If you're new to the program, haven't heard that episode, it's a great episode. I'm very proud of what we did with those two episodes. But yes, it was Bill Medot who came on. It was my interview for both episodes. And Lois, you win. Lois, if you will send me through Messenger or whatever your information, if you have volume 1, volume 2, whatever you want, I will sign one. I will send it to you. Of course, shipping and everything paid for by me. So just message me. Don't put your address on here or anything. We don't want to do that. Send me your address, and I will get a book in the mail to you. Thank you for participating, Lois. Congratulations. I'm very happy for you. And thank you to everybody else who tried to get in to win. Thank you. Yes, Stephanie, 90 miles an hour. 90 miles an hour they went off because when they brought the car up from down at the bottom of this cliff by the Pacific Ocean, when the car hit the ground, the speedometer was pegged at 90 miles an hour. Yes, that's true. So they're believing that this was a murder/suicide. So the women, whoever's driving, committed suicide, and she killed her partner and at least some of the kids. I know, horrible situation. Now, what might have brought this on was that it seemed there was something going on in this family where the kids were going to the neighbors and asking for food. That brought in child services, and child services had shown up at this family's house just a few days before their SUV minivan or whatever went off this cliff. Horrible, horrible story. And I have to tell you, from the first time I heard the story, before all this other stuff came out about 90 miles an hour, I thought that was probably some sort of murder-suicide. Just had that feeling to me. Now, the reason I'm bringing it up, on top of it being, a national story, is that only 3 of their 6 children were found in the vehicle. Only 3, and they had 6. And the police are pretty sure that the other 3 did not get what, because I guess the SUV landed in the water. It hit the rocks or went into the water, something like that. And the police do not believe that these 3 other children were in the vehicle. They do not believe that they were swept out into the ocean or anything like that. So these other 3 kids are somewhere. They're somewhere. Whether they were possibly murdered beforehand, I hate to talk about children like this, but it's a horrible story. But it is a missing persons case now. Did these women give these kids away? Did they sell them away? Yes, Greg. It landed upside down on rocks. Right. Thank you. And did they sell them? Did they leave them somewhere? Did they kill them and dispose of them somewhere? Hard to say. All the police know right now, they're pretty sure that these 3 were not in the vehicle when it went off the cliff. So somewhere out, it could be they're out in California. Who knows? The tough part about this is that if you're going to have 2 grown adults who are going to kill 3 children and kill themselves as well, then these 2 are capable of anything. And you can't rule out anything. You can't rule out they murdered them and buried them in the backyard. You can't rule out they sold them off for, child pornographers. You can't rule them selling them. You just can't rule anything out. And that's what makes this so horrible. So I'm thinking out in California that they have a look. They're trying to figure out what happened to these 3 kids. And I think that maybe I read it wrong. I think that these were the 3 older ones. At least 1 or 2 of them were of the older kid. Like I said, they had 6 kids, but I think at least 2 of the older ones were not in the vehicle. Charlie says they must have the reasons why they believe those 3 current kids weren't in the car. True, yeah. It may be a seatbelt thing. Maybe it has to do with, they're looking at how everybody was situated in the car and seeing, well, these people couldn't, these kids couldn't have, got out through a broken window or something like that. And it very well may be that the reason that maybe one of the older kids was not included in this is because an older child would maybe sense what's going on and try to stop it. That's a thought that came to mind to me as well. So horrible story. And I hope they find those 3 other kids alive. Being that it's been a while since this all happened and they haven't been found yet, of course, the odds continue to go down, get worse. But it is a missing persons case, and I hope they figure out what happened to these kids, and I hope that they are still alive. So I know you had heard about, probably, like I said, it was a huge national story. I'm just not, wasn't aware if any of you knew that there was now a missing persons case as well. So there you go. Let's go back to another question, and this comes from Emily. She asked me actually 4 questions. Emily, I'm going to take 2 of them. Emily asked me, what if someone that Unfound covered as a missing person is found alive? Well, Emily, I can tell you for sure that you and I, being that we work together to try to find the guests for the program, we're both going to work very, very hard to get that missing person who was a missing person who's back on the program. All right, I can tell you that for sure. That's absolutely what we're going to try to do. So that would be my, first inclination, and just, it depends. Of course, it depends on the circumstances. Marcia earlier brought up Tammy Lynn Leppert. She's been disappeared 30-some years. How I would approach interviewing her if she were to come on the program to explain where she's been all these years would certainly be different than if I were to talk to, let's say, somebody who disappeared much more recently. Let's say Chip Campbell, for example, who disappeared in Florida in 2016, if he were to pop up again. And I hope he does. Of course, I've gotten to know his sisters, his family very well. If he were to turn up alive somewhere, that would be awesome. And how I would, if he were to come on the program, how I would talk to him would be different than, I'm sure my conversation with Tammy, who should be in her 50s now. So, but that's absolutely what I'd be trying to do, and I would hope that we could make that happen. It would certainly give us great insight into what can go on, and how maybe in Tammy's case she was able to, stay out of the picture for all these years. Let's just say, in Chip's case, the same way. So we could talk about those things. That what we would do. That's what we would do. We'd try to get that person on the program. Emily also asked another question. Let's see here. Why do you think sometimes law enforcement doesn't put much effort into some cases as they do others? This is a topic that we've covered before. And I think it just has to do with the circumstances. I think it has to do with that police officers or that department's experience with missing persons cases. I think that has to do with natural biases that humans have. I think it has to do with a lot of things put together. It depends on the individual. There's so many different variables. Now, I'm telling you, it shouldn't. But, the police are just human. And to expect them to be robots or automatons or drones or something is not realistic. It's not rational. And they can be affected by their biases as much as we can. I mean, we all know that sometimes we go to work and we don't feel 100%. whether you're a secretary or an engineer or a teacher, it's hard to give it 100% every day. It just is. And it very well could be sometimes these policemen aren't giving it 100% that day. And that goes along with all the other reasons that I've already brought up. And I think that this I don't think that it has anything to do with race or anything else. We just talked about this golden boy from Atlanta. Are they working hard that case? Maybe. I don't know how much time they're really putting into it now. And he's a guy who seemed to have some money, influence, probably upper middle class, working at the CDC, high profile job and everything. I don't know. It's a variety of things, and I wish I knew more about the topic, but that's the best answer I can give you, Emily, and to everybody watching tonight. That sometimes police just don't do their job. Sometimes they're trying to do their job and they're not getting anywhere. Sometimes, sometimes there's just not a lot of information. There's just not. Especially if there are no suspects involved. What are you going to do? You take a police report and that's it. I know all the guests, they've complained about the police, and I think a lot of them have some very good reasons, to be ticked. They do. But yeah, I also try to get in the policeman's shoes, that you have to remember, most missing people who go missing come back. And it's just hard to tell the ones who are going to come back in 3 days and the ones who aren't going to come back at all. It's just impossible to tell. Dorothy. Loyal Stevick was DNA tested and traced to Mexico. His brother-in-law came on Reddit and said the family is known for a long time. Nobody believes it. I don't even, Dorothy, I'm not sure. I don't even know. Was DNA tested and traced to New Mexico. His brother-in-law came on Reddit and said the family is known for a long time. Nobody believes it's him. I do. That is not something I'm totally familiar with, Dorothy. So if you want to send me more information about it, I can't talk about it because I don't know that much about it. So I apologize. So there you go. Let's take one more question. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. Did you see that Marcia Clark is back? I'm just going to throw this out there. How do you feel about her hosting a true crime show? I have to tell you that I'm very surprised. I don't believe that, at least in the United States, pop culture, given that she was a prosecutor in the OJ case, she doesn't have, I think, the greatest reputation. And so I'm surprised that, Joyce, you love, I knew it. I knew I was going to find somebody, Joyce. I'm just a little surprised that she could get a show, given that, and I'm not saying it's entirely her fault. I mean, I personally believe that OJ was guilty, but a jury saw otherwise. But even while the trial, as I remember back in mid-1990s, 1995 was it? Not really being impressed with her as a person, as a lawyer, as a prosecutor. I wasn't impressed with her in anything that interview she did since then or anything. I'm just very surprised. I have to tell you. So I just wanted to throw that out there, being that I saw that she's back. She's hosting some show. 1994, Barbara? Okay, thank you. Seems like yesterday. Let's take another question, and then we're going to talk about this week's case. And so another question. I have no interest. Andrew says, I have no interest in watching her. Not getting a conviction for OJ was a loss of professional credibility, in my opinion. Andrea, that's what I agree. Now, granted, maybe with the jury, being that they all found it wasn't even a hung jury, maybe there's not much she could have done anyway. But even before that, I just don't remember. I just remember thinking, if this is the best the LA County prosecutor or whatever county it was can do, then no wonder he was found not guilty. Joyce says she's smart and fought hard. Like I said, I knew there were going to be people, and Joyce, you know I love you. Joyce says she is smart and fought hard, but the judge beat her down. I'm no fan of Judge Ito either, but he's not hosting a show, to my knowledge. So, or did he? I want to check something. Did he die? Did I read somewhere? No, he's still alive. Okay, he's still alive. For some reason, it just popped into my head. Is he even still alive? Okay, he's still alive. I just checked it. Wikipedia says he's alive, and you know Wikipedia doesn't lie. I'm just surprised. Just surprised. Wait. No, it's Stephanie. Lance Ito. Wikipedia says Lance Ito is still. Let's see now where I'm gonna go off here. Lance Ito. Stephanie, he's still alive. I think. Johnny Cochran died. That's who died. Johnny Cochran died. Lance Ito, Johnny did pass away, but I think Lance Ito is still alive. Wikipedia says he's still alive. Yeah, there must have been something regarding that. Okay, well, we're getting off on a tangent here. I didn't want to get off on. But Marcia Clark's hosting a show. If anybody watches the show, since I don't have TV, let me know how she does. See if you're impressed by her. All right, next question. This was a question submitted by Marcia, who is watching tonight. Do I think that Nicholas Masucci case could have mafia ties? The simple answer is yes. I think that has to be a possibility. The question really in that case, and maybe let me just read the whole question and I'll say it. Do you think the Nicholas Masucci case could have mafia ties? That's all I could think of with all the Italian names. Not should be a stereotypical. Marcia, don't worry about it. Also, in the case of Joshua Guimon, I still can't believe they were never allowed to search that one building. I'll get to Joshua Guimon in a second. But Nicholas Masucci, yeah, there is a possibility of that. But if we are to believe Fran, who I personally believe her, and being, I've gotten to know Fran fairly well. That, I believe that her brother did have something to do with Nicholas Masucci's disappearance. Now, did the mafia, force Joe, Nicholas's son, to do something? Did he get together with Uncle Carmine, and Uncle Carmine might have been a little connected? Then yes, but I don't believe that Nicholas Masucci's disappearance was something like what you saw in Goodfellas, where the character gets taken to that house. He thinks he's going to get be a made man. He walks in there and then figures out that he's going to get whacked, and that's what happens. So I don't think that that's what happened. I don't think it was that. I don't think that it was something like that where Nicholas was with some other mob guys and he thought he was going to a meeting and he showed up. And I think that if that was the case, then things would have been much more orderly after Nicholas disappeared. I don't think that Joe would have had the power in his family that he did. But it very well could be attached to the mafia, but very, very tangentially. Very tangentially. And not how we, as everybody outside the mob and everything, think of when Big Pussy gets shot on The Sopranos. That's something I've seen all the Soprano episodes. When they figure out he's an informant. I don't think that happened to Nicholas Masucci. All right, so there you go. As far as Joshua Guimon, that was a case I covered early on, Marcia. And, there's so many rumors about what was searched and what wasn't searched in that case that, even all the, talk, and I haven't talked to Patrick Marker in a long time. I think there's so many rumors about what dogs smelled and what they didn't smell and where they went and where they didn't go and everything that I just don't know if we're ever going to really know what was searched and what wasn't. All right. I don't know if All I know is I stand still by what I said regarding that case way back when. I would not put it past them that Josh was about walking back to his dorm, maybe got hit by a car by one of the monks or something on that campus, and they covered it up. I still stick by that. I still stick by that story, and you can read about that in volume number 2. Because the other things are just a little too extravagant theory-wise for me. But your mileage may vary. So I don't know what. To this day, I still don't think we know. There's a lot of reasons people want to be against St. John's University and say they got in the way of this and got in the way of that. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. So I don't, it very well may be the entire campus was searched. But the rumor is that it wasn't. And unfortunately, being that was a year and a half ago I covered that case, I'd have to go back and listen to that interview to really, speak about it more intelligently than probably I can right at this second. Let's go to this week's case. It is the disappearance of Renee Yeargain, Y-E-A-R, just like it sounds, Y-E-A-R-G-A-I-N. She disappeared on August 10th, 2004. Her brother, like I stated earlier, and of course Lois wins the prize, her brother is the interview for this case. His name is John. I'm friends with him on Facebook. I think he did a good job. She was in a relationship, and I'm telling you right now, this case is probably going to remind you a lot of the disappearance of Charlotte Paulus, which was another case. It was a case we did a while ago. Back to early last year. Actually, her case is going to be in the next volume 3, the Unfound volume 3. Her case will be in that one, where a woman mysteriously disappears and her fiance or husband just goes, I don't know, she just took off. This is one of those cases. Now, what makes this one, I think, a little unique is that where her car was found could lead people to believe that actually maybe she did take off, because her car was found at a rest stop. There were no signs of violence in it or anything else. And I posted a picture of the rest stop in the group and on the page. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's not like, let's just say her fiance, whose name is Josh, did something to her and could have driven her car back out there and then walked home. Not possible. Not possible. So if he did do something, he had to have had help, which then brings in other people and it adds to the conspiracy. Can everybody keep their mouth shut? Just don't know. You, in the end, are going to have to judge for yourself. There are, frankly, a lot of facts that aren't in her fiance's favor, Josh's favor. But I think that we have to be open to this, especially considering within the last couple months, and I think I even mentioned it in the interview with John, that we just had a guy from Canada come down to New Hampshire, Vermont, disappear, and then wind up in San Francisco, and he says he doesn't know how he got there. So if that is possible, then virtually more things are possible than we believe. And she was 2 weeks from getting married. Maybe she was getting nervous about being married. Now, there was some, you're going to hear about maybe some claims of domestic abuse. The problem is no police reports were ever filed on them. She allegedly left him a couple times, but always went back. But no police reports regarding any sort of abuse or anything. So, once again, that's what John says. I just asked the questions. You are the ones who have to choose whether you believe it or not. I think he did a good job. I think he's a good guy. But I am just the interviewer. And you will have to judge that all for yourselves. This is, and the reason this case, actually the title of it is going to be he said, just like he said, she said. Well, this is he said, because first I want to note that this is the first male family member that we've had on Unfound in quite a long time, over a year, as Lois discovered. And also, you're going to ask to decide between two different stories, between the fiance, his story as to what happened, that he claims she just got a bunch of her clothes and stuff, got in her car and left, or are you going to believe John, the brother, who admits in the interview that back at that time he was going through his own struggles. So, it wasn't necessarily keeping tabs on his sister or anything like that. You're gonna have to pick, because their stories are definitely different. It's easy to believe that Josh might have had something to do with this, but maybe not. Since then, so what I've discovered is that he has been with other women since then. They haven't disappeared, although I did discover something, and I'm not going to give it away right now, about who he was before he started dating Renee. So you're going to have to figure that all in. Once again, this is the disappearance of Renee Yeargain. She disappeared on August 10th, 2004. She allegedly gathered up all her things, got in her car, and left. Her car was found about 40 miles away in this rest stop that's out in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming. The episode is called He Said, He Said. He said, comma, he said. This is another case, and we seem to be running into a lot of them, where, another case where a car is abandoned, much like the Roy Brooks case or Mandy Stokes' case, where a car is abandoned and found somewhere. Where this one was found is maybe even in a stranger place. And so that's the case. And maybe you can look at that. And this will be our first case from Wyoming. So we get another state on the Unfound map. Kimber says, didn't realize this had started. Sorry to be late. Kimber, don't worry about it. It'll be posted on YouTube later if you'd like to watch it. If you'd like. Stephanie says, a ramper named Lance Ito died. Yeah, that must have been what I was thinking of, Stephanie. No, not really. Stylianos, The Many Saints of New York. Yes, I heard about this movie or something that may be coming out. Yes. And Emily says, Josh did it. I'd be shocked if she took off on her own. You may be right, Emily, but it'll be up to the listeners to decide for themselves. So we're getting toward the end. We do. I'm back in Florida, as you can see. You can see the Johnny Depp in the background. Lois wins the contest tonight. Lois, don't forget to send me your information so I can send you a book. Because this, the reason we had this little game was because this is the first male family member I've interviewed for an episode since March of last year. I don't know why that is. Maybe that's a topic for next week. We can talk about that, why that is. I'm wearing a shirt, Unfound shirt. Did business, shirts, books, playing cards, Patreon and PayPal. Thank you for your support. If you're not a supporter, you can join for $2 a month. News, Dr. Timothy Cunningham, he's still missing, the CDC guy. Check out that story at people.com. The car off the cliff in California, it's now a missing persons case, looking for 3 of their children. Marcia Clark is back. Marcia Clark is back hosting a TV show, true crime show, which boggles my mind. And then took questions from the audience. Thank you for the questions. And then finally, we talked about the disappearance of Renee Yeargain. That's going to be this Friday's episode, 2 p.m. Eastern. She disappeared on August 10th, 2004. The episode is called He Said, He Said. And so that's it. Been here about an hour. Thank you for all joining me on this Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern. These shows go about an hour. If you tuned in late, it will be posted to YouTube later. And you will hear me on Friday for the disappearance of Renee Yeargain. I thank you all for tuning in tonight. It's my favorite time of the week. Get to converse with all of you a little bit. It's been fun. Lois, congratulations for winning the contest. Please send me your information. And I'm going to say good night to all of you now. And I'll see you this time next week. And you'll hear me on Friday. And good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I cannot thank you enough. Thanks. Good night.